What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence with this week's episode of Required Reading. And this week we have three articles that I think are interesting ones, I think signifying a shift, one of which picks up from last week, an article, but goes a bit deeper, but with a little bit more of a harmonious and beautifully written prose. And so the first is in the Wall Street Journal. It is Yale's David Swensen puts money managers on notice about diversity. Now, Yale is one of those educational institutions that has a quite massive endowment. And so most of these endowments, if you're kind of not already aware, these endowments are usually these amounts of money that the university has split amongst different entities and money managers, people, hedge funds, different funds that manage the money. Now, why this is important is because I think in lieu of the times, what they essentially are saying is that if you don't diversify the money managers and the leadership of your fund, then we are looking and evaluating the opportunity to move our assets somewhere else. Now, this is important because I think particularly places like Yale, that have massive endowments, what they do kind of sets the standard. And so this is important to signal kind of a move in industry. Now, I think there's a natural concern that people have is this all smoke, no fire? Is it more symbol than actual systematic change? You actually find that this is something that Yale itself is trying to move forward on their own management team of the endowment. And so I think for some people this may ring a bit hollow, but I think for many others, at least directionally, it's a positive thing to signal that move. And I think, quite frankly, other industries should be held to the same standard as well. On top of that, what I actually do like, and I've talked about it in an article before when I talked about Glenn Durham, Sister Stephanie Lampkin, and people, I do think that companies should have to publish their diversity numbers by level, by specific level. And they'd be graded like almost like good housekeeping seal of approval. And so in every industry, you'd be able to see where people stack up. And I think when you actually have that public transparency, you'll see public accountability and more movement towards letting their mouth meet or letting their kind of practices meet where their supposed principles are. But I do think this is a positive thing to see endowments look to be more diversified and more reflective of the world. And I do applaud Yale for doing this. And so again, this is in this past week's October 23rd Wall Street Journal by Juliet Chung and Dawn Lim. So again, I definitely think y'all should check that out. The second article is kind of picks back up on this ongoing, and when I say ongoing, I'm talking about multiple years, but just what we're seeing go on at home. And when I say at home, I'm talking about Nigeria in the End SARS protests and movement, and it's actually by our sister Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Nigeria is murdering its citizens. I think the title is powerful enough. And even though we had the article last week from Amnesty International, I thought it was just powerful to hear, I think, in such vivid language, with such personal stake beyond just this being kind of a home of residence, a place, a country that you love, but actually seeing her own personal experience with it and being able to describe it in only a way that only she can. I think she really holds up the mantle of accountability and just how serious this is for our country and for the world. And so, I think it's important for anyone who wants to kind of still stay connected, but ultimately have a more detailed and more visual and graphic understanding of what's happening. And I think her just ability to communicate that in such a powerful way. And so I think if the title should be indication enough that this is real, if you've not already seen. On top of that, just that she's not necessarily holding anything back, and I think she describes the reality of the situation very well. So I'm going to continue to keep these down the pike as long as I think it will add to the understanding of the situation happening here and why this is a really big deal and why this is tragic and why this is potentially an opportunity, obviously, for real change. So I will point people to the New York Times, this Sunday's opinion about our sister Chimamanda, Nigeria is murdering its citizens. Now, this last article, I think, it really caught my attention. It was actually in the Griffith Review by Sister Iris Mackler, and it's called "The Kindness of Strangers: Creating Connections with a Vanished Past." And so, what naturally, anytime I tell you about strangers, relationship, friendship, loan, anything, I jump on it. And this was a beautifully written article talking about kind of those who escaped, kind of survivors of the Holocaust who escaped and had moved to Australia, and how for a number of these women, um, their cooking and their connection to they're kind of like their connection to old recipes and the foods that they eat was kind of their way of staying connected to the past, because in some cases, one young lady, it kind of tells her when she was able to go back after she was after kind of like she was released from the concentration camp, and luckily survived, was able to go back to home and to the ruins, and was able to salvage some things. And one of the things that she salvaged was a written notebook of recipes. And this became something that she held on to, though her childhood home crushed, destroyed, many people lost, murdered in the Holocaust. Um, she kept that cooking, that recipe, and it was actually through kind of a shared recipe book written by the author that a number of these women in Australia had reconnected with each other, but ultimately saw how powerful this tradition in food was for them, kind of keeping some semblance of connection to their past, while at the same time escaping the past physically by being in Australia for many different reasons. And I love things that kind of take you down a road to see a picture. This is not something like SARS or anything that you is easy for you to read about. But there's also this beautiful thread of kind of the resilience of humanity, resilience of human beings, to hold on to those things that are dear, to value family by any means necessary, by any means possible, and how the power of food to not only connect people, but also to connect people to people living, and those long, and those who have transitioned from us, whether through life lived or through life taken. And so it was such a beautiful story, and there was so many gems of wisdom that was written. I think it's always powerful for me to hear, and anytime I read anything about the Holocaust, it does something more to my heart, to even soften it even more when I get a better understanding of what our brothers and sisters have gone through in their experience. On top of that, just the reality of how much some of this grief lives, and how sometimes that food, that Sabbath keeping of cooking, is a way for many of them to stay connected to their experience, their home that kind of was taken from them, their livelihood, their family, their customs was taken from them, but that wasn't, among other things. And so, again, this was in the Griffith Review, and by Iris Mackler, "The Kindness of Strangers Creating Connections with a Vanished Past." And one of the ways that they draw connection is through food. And so, again, I really love the articles of this week, and I really hope that you get to enjoy them, and I would love to hear your thoughts. But as always, definitely drop your comments. Let me know what you think. Definitely continue to make sure you subscribe and share. But again, I hope that you are edified and you're encouraged by what we have this week. All right. Take care, y'all. See you soon.